Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. If you can hear my voice and if you're online and see the screen, you have joined the California High-Speed Rail Authority virtual community meeting for the Palmdale to Burbank project section. So welcome. Thank you very much for joining this evening. Well, I see we have a lot of participants, so we're just going to give folks just a minute or so to join and make sure that you're set up. And we'll proceed with our meeting tonight. You should be able to view our opening title slide for the Palmdale to Burbank project section. And in a moment, I'll be introducing the panelists that you see on screen now. And we'll walk through some very good information and update on the project for you this evening, including a virtual flyover of the preferred alternative for the Palmdale to Burbank section. So it looks like we have a healthy set of folks joining us for the meeting this evening. I'll just give it another few moments to make sure everyone's on, and then we'll begin. Again, if you are just joining, thank you for joining us for our virtual community meeting from the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Tonight, we'll be reviewing information specific to the Palmdale to Burbank project section, and we are happy to have you tonight. So it looks like we've settled in with our attendance. So we'll go ahead and begin. We have an hour and a half together. I'll go through all the instructions and our format as we begin now. So thank you again for joining us. On behalf of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, welcome or bienvenidos to our virtual community meeting for the Palmdale to Burbank project section. My name is Genoveva Arellano, and as a member of the outreach team for the authority, I will be serving as your moderator of today's virtual community meeting. For those of you joining us for the first time on this project, welcome. You should know that the Palmdale to Burbank project is part of the larger statewide program to bring high-speed rail to California. This high-speed transportation technology has been in place for in many places around the world since the 1960s, and California is the first to bring it to our country. It is already under construction in the Central Valley, and it is in the planning stages here in Southern California. For those of you who have joined us for community meetings already over the last several years, it's good to virtually see you. Thank you for joining us again. You already know a lot about the program, and you can see the ongoing efforts of the authority has made to do public outreach and include you on these very important milestone meetings. We've been trying to be respectful of the project objectives, respectful of our environmental resources, and considering the community prior to making any decisions over time. It's taken quite a bit of time, but it's very important to make sure all of these touch points are made and the project is done properly. We appreciate you continuing to monitor this project and staying involved. Off the top, we recognize that there are competing events for your time this evening. The authority has done its best to avoid city council meetings and other community calendars, and inevitably we still have a conflict today. If you know of others, however, who have chosen not to join, or if you need to drop off this call or the meeting at any time, please do so. But please know the entire meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the authority's website for your review at any time. So what we're talking about today is not time sensitive, does not have a due date. So please know that this can be viewed at any time beyond this evening. Also, please know that the information being presented today is not time sensitive. As I've mentioned, we don't have a due date for public comments or any pending decision right now. This meeting is purely informational and is not legally required. So today's meeting is intended to provide a specific update focused on the northern area of the Palmdale to Burbank project section, and will provide an overview and status of the entire project between Palmdale and Burbank. For your information, the authority has conducted comprehensive public outreach to inform our stakeholders of today's meeting, including briefings with our elected officials, key stakeholders, and electronic noticing to the entire project database, and direct mail to the northern part of the section where the adjustment that we're talking about today has occurred. The authority's website currently features the latest project map and fact sheet, so we hope that you view that. Also, today's presentation and the full set of flyover animated videos, one for each of the alternatives, will be posted shortly following today's meeting for ongoing reference, so folks can view that again at any time. The website information also has been remediated to ensure full accessibility to all interested parties. All right, so for today's meeting, you will hear a presentation from our project team, who they will introduce themselves in a moment, and where you will learn more about the statewide high-speed rail program, history of the Palmdale to Burbank project section, our project schedule, and the very important phase we are in right now, which is to produce a draft environmental document for public review, which is due out sometime next year. Again, tonight's meeting is to provide you an update, and there is no deadline or requirement for public comments. Our meeting today is scheduled from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. It will first be conducted in English, and then secondly in Spanish, back to back. So our English presentation is running now from 5:30 to 7 o'clock p.m. At that point, we will take a short break just to switch over for the presentation to be repeated entirely in Spanish with identical information, and it will conclude at 8 o'clock p.m. I will be making announcements about the Spanish meeting as we approach the 7 o'clock hour for anyone who may be joining at that time. We will also include this information in the chat box on your screen, so folks who are joining can know that they will, that perhaps their meeting is about to begin. So I'll repeat this information very quickly in Spanish, or in case there's anyone joining in Spanish now. Para su información, esta reunión de alcance público se va a repetir completamente en español a las 7 p.m. Yo voy a hacer anuncios sobre este llegando a las 7 en incluiremos esta información en el chat en su pantalla también. For your information, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the authority's website following the meeting. Okay, now, so before I review the online instructions and how today's meeting will run, I would like to introduce to you our project team and actually have them introduce yourself so you can see them on the screen and hear their voice. First and foremost, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the newest member of the high-speed rail team here in Southern California, long awaited. This is LaDonna DiCamillo. She is our new Southern California Regional Director. We are very fortunate to have her. She brings decades of experience in the rail industry. She is highly knowledgeable and respected here in the Southern California rail landscape, and she is committed to our stakeholders and is an absolute pleasure to work with. So LaDonna, can you please introduce yourself before the others?
Sure, thanks, Genevieve. I think you pretty much covered it. It's my pleasure and honor to join the team and looking forward to being a part of this important infrastructure project. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, LaDonna. Next, we have Rick Simon. Many of you know Rick. He's our project manager. Rick, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Hannah. Rick Simon. I'm project manager for both the Bakersfield to Palmdale and the Palmdale to Burbank sections of the high-speed rail program. We're happy to make this presentation to you tonight, give you some more information on the project.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. And next, one of our speakers is Stephanie Roberts. Stephanie, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Roberts, and I am the environmental manager for the Palmdale to Burbank project section for the authority.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. I'd also like to introduce our consultant team managers from Center USA. Juan, can you introduce yourself, please? Can you unmute yourself first? No problem.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Juan Lema, and I'm the project manager for the regional consultant that supports high-speed rail on the Palmdale to Burbank project section.
Excellent. Thank you, Juan. And joining Juan as his deputy project manager is Roberto. Roberto, please introduce yourself.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Roberto Rodriguez, and I'm deputy project manager for the regional consultant also for the Palmdale to Burbank project section.
Excellent. Thank you, Roberto. And to all our panelists, thank you. For your information, we also have additional specialists and other project representatives on the line who are available to address any questions as we have them a little later. So there's lots of folks here available to serve you. Okay, so in the past, our public community meetings would be held in multiple locations along the project corridor and would be set up to present project information visually and personally with you. While we are not able to have this in-person touch today due to the pandemic, as we all know, we will still be conducting today's meeting in the same way. We will still present the project information from our team members. We will walk you through the visual information on our video, and we will allow time for your questions and comments. As a reminder, we are still under development of a draft environmental document for this project section. So any questions regarding specific impacts or more detailed information about the impacts and analysis cannot be addressed at this time, as the document is still under development and not available for public review. It will be next year. We'll review that schedule with you. So if we can ask you to focus your questions on any information specific to the information that we're presenting today, or any general information about the program, we'd be happy to spend our time answering those questions. You will receive more information about the environmental process and the timing of the release of the document, which will occur next year during our presentation today. So we'll give you all that information. You can see us all now via the cameras to start the meeting, but we will be turning the cameras off during the presentation so that you can focus on the slides. We will turn the cameras back on during the questions and answers so you can see us answering your question. So we will be taking your questions after the presentation in 3 ways. First, online. So those of you who are online, if you can please use the raise your hand button on your Zoom screen. We will call upon you and unmute you in order for you to speak. Secondly, if you are on the phone only, that's great. I'm glad you can hear us. And you can also raise your hand on the phone by pushing *9 on your keypad. That'll show up on our screen here, and we will similarly call you in order. I will identify you by the last 4 digits of your phone number, and we will be able to take your question that way. And finally, if you prefer not to speak and just write in your question, you can do that through the chat box that's on your screen. We do have staff here who are monitoring the chat box and possibly can answer your questions straight out. If not, they will be feeding me those questions, and I will be taking those in order as well, time permitted. If you have any technical problems, please send a message via the chat box or call this number. The number is 626-216-7304. Let me repeat that. If you're having any technical difficulties, the number to call is 626-216-7304. As moderator, I will be managing the time and will work to ensure that all those interested in speaking have an opportunity to do so. If it appears that we may be running out of time to get to everyone by 7 o'clock, we may ask you to email us your comments or questions if we run out of time, and we will certainly get back to you following the meeting. This is on the screen. You should be able to see the email address for the section, which is palmdale_burbank@hsr.ca.gov. You should make a note of that. Or the phone number for the team is 800-630-1039. Jot these down and please call us anytime. If we run out of time again today, please use this to communicate with us. I do need to mention and ask you for everyone to please be respectful in your oral or written comments with us this evening. Any threatening, profane, or other inappropriate language will not be permitted. Disruptive participants will be removed from the meeting. I do not expect that we'll have that problem, but I hope you can appreciate, want to make sure that that is known to everyone. Okay, so we are ready to start our agenda. What I'd like to do first is review with you the agenda, which is reviewing the program overall. That will be done by our new regional director, LaDonna. We'll proceed then into the project section information. Rick will handle that for us. Stephanie will talk about our environmental process. Then I will resume with talking a little bit about our outreach process, and then we'll play the video so that you can watch the preferred alternative, and Rick will help narrate that a little bit as we move forward. Once we're done with the video, then we'll open it up to questions and answers. Okay, over to you, LaDonna.
Thanks, Genoveva. And good evening, everyone. As Hannah mentioned, this will be the first high-speed rail in the nation, and we're excited about that. There's a lot going on with the program, but in the interest of time, I'd like to provide just a brief overview of the entire program. It's a multi-billion-dollar program that will provide much-needed transportation for California. High-speed rail will increase mobility by connecting to existing transportation networks such as buses, light rail, and other transit. Our path forward is to incorporate our project into the state rail plan goals and objectives, focusing on network integration. As you can see from the map, the dark blue is phase 1, which will connect San Francisco to Anaheim. There will be secondary phase 2 connecting Sacramento and Merced, as well as Los Angeles to San Diego. And the teal line is the Bright Line West project, a private investment from Las Vegas to Victorville, which ultimately plans to connect to our Palmdale station. Next slide, please. Phase 1 involves 520 miles from San Francisco to Anaheim. 119 miles are under construction in the Central Valley, employing thousands of workers and hundreds of small business, and we're excited about that. The remaining sections are going through environmental clearance now. 2 sections in Northern California are working on their final EIR, and the 4 sections from Bakersfield to LA we're working on environmental documents as well. This evening, we're focusing on Palmdale to Burbank. When complete, in terms of speed, if you travel from San Francisco to LA, an average speed of 200 miles per hour, it will get you there in 2 hours and 40 minutes. In terms of funding, the state has allocated $4.4 billion of investments in Southern California. We refer to these as early investments or bookends. I want to highlight that 1.3 billion of the 4.4 billion is from the High-Speed Rail Authority. The authority has been instrumental in closing funding gaps for special projects that are either completed or under construction now. For those projects, I've highlighted in the next slide. LA Metro, which is a regional connector downtown LA, connecting Little Tokyo underground to the 7th Street Metro station. We've also helped Metrolink fund cleaner locomotives, which will include positive train control for safer and cleaner locomotives on Metrolink. We're working with Metro to fund Link US, or Link Union Station, which will involve several components, including accommodating high-speed rail, and also create some run-through loop tracks, which currently Union Station is dead-ended. These loop tracks will go over US 101 and help create more fluidity there at Union Station. And last but not least, Rosecrans Marquardt grade separation, which is currently a busy grade separation with a rail line diagonally through it that carries over 100 trains a day. We'll be able to grade separate that for a safer environment and more air quality benefits. So with that, I'll let Rick take it away.
Okay, thank you, LaDonna. The Palmdale to Burbank section will connect a station in Palmdale at a relocated Palmdale Transportation Center just south of the existing transportation center, with a Burbank station that will be located adjacent to the planned new airport terminal. This section will not only be part of the Los Angeles to San Francisco line, but will also provide a connection to the line from Palmdale to Las Vegas. At both stations, there will be connections to other modes of transportation. Travel time from Palmdale to Burbank will be 15 to 20 minutes, which is a significant reduction from the 1 hour and 30 minutes that Metrolink currently requires. Many of you who have followed this HSR project have seen this slide before. This represents the balancing act that the team does in order to develop and identify routes the project will take. First, our project objectives, which are things that the agency is required to do as part of its charge to build a high-speed rail system in California. It needs to be safe. It needs to travel quickly. We need to put stations in areas where we can get the most riders. Next are environmental resources. We have to protect the natural lands, the water, the animals, the plants, the air. All of these things are very important to consider. Our resource agencies help us to ensure that these protections are in place. Finally, we need to evaluate and understand the communities that this project will travel through. We need to make sure we are protecting the character of our communities so that they can continue to thrive in the future and maintain the character that they have today. We attempt to strike a balance across these 3 areas, but the best route will not be perfect in any one of these categories. Our goal is to communicate the features of each of the alternatives to you, fully identify the impacts of each of them to you, and have a conversation with you about them. This slide depicts the three alignments that we have been analyzing since 2016. For the color coding on all of our maps, the maroon or purple color denotes where the alignment is in tunnel. Green denotes where the alignment is on the surface, either in cut or in a fill. And the blue denotes where the alignment is on a bridge. The westernmost of the three alignments is the refined SR14 alternative, which was designated as our preferred alternative in 2018. The two eastern alignments are called E1 and E2. All three of these alignments are identical in Palmdale and at the Burbank Airport. As we go past Lake Palmdale in the north set part of the section, all of these alignments impact Una Lake, which is just east of Lake Palmdale. It was originally thought that we could mitigate the impacts to Una Lake, but through our discussions with the resource agencies, we have decided to add a new option to the project that would go around the east side of Una Lake. We call this the Una Lake avoidance option. As seen in the inset on this map, the Una Lake avoidance option would swing east and go around the east side of Una Lake. To the south, and this option needs to then be reconnected to the original alignments. The Una Lake avoidance option is connected to the refined SR14 alignment using a new SR14A alignment that is farther south as it passes through Acton. The Una Lake avoidance option is connected to E1 and E2 alignments with a slightly different alignment between Una Lake and the Vincent substation. This creates the E1A and E2A alternatives. These new A alternatives are being added to the project. We will have more detail on these on later slides. With the addition of the three A alternatives, we will now be presenting 6 build alternatives in our environmental document. The 3 original alternatives will remain unchanged, and the 3 new A alternatives will be added to the document. At our August board meeting, our CEO announced that the SR14A alternative would now be designated as the preferred alternative for the Palmdale to Burbank section. There you see the SR14A highlighted, the others have been screened out. Okay, next slide. On this map, the dashed line represents the original refined SR14 alternative in the Acton area, while the solid line is the new SR14A alternative. The SR14A alternative is identical to the other alternatives in Palmdale, but south of Palmdale, it swings to the east to go around Una Lake. It passes over the California Aqueduct, Metrolink, and Sierra Highway in the area where the aqueduct is in an underground siphon south of Barrel Springs Road. It enters a tunnel near the SR14 Pear Blossom Highway interchange and continues underground all the way through Acton. The SR14 alternative remains underground past the Pacific Crest Trail and the Vasquez Rock State Park before daylighting to go over Agua Dulce Canyon Road. After another short tunnel, the alignment daylights again to go over the Santa Clara River, Metrolink, and Soledad Canyon Road. South of the river, the alignment enters a tunnel through the Angeles National Forest. The SR14A alternative is identical to the original refined SR14A alternative south of the Santa Clara River. The selection of SR14A as our preferred alternative is based on several factors. It provides the lowest constructability risk to encountering groundwater at very high pressure as we tunnel deep within the San Gabriel Mountains. It provides the lowest risk to groundwater impacts in the mountains, which could result in the loss of surface waters and impacts to wildlife within the National Forest. It has the shortest length of tunnel that is within the National Forest and the National Monument. It avoids the impacts to Una Lake, and it avoids impacts to the Pacific Crest Trail. The E1A and E2A alternatives will be slightly different than the original E1 and E2 alignments, as they will be somewhat farther east, going around Una Lake and through the SR14 Pear Blossom Highway interchange. The E1A and E2A alternatives rejoin the original E1 and E2 alignments near Edison's Vincent substation, and the new A alternatives are identical to the original E1 and E2 alignments from this point south to Burbank. That is a description of the new alternatives being added to the project. Now I will turn it over to Stephanie Roberts, our environmental manager, to discuss the environmental process.
Thank you, Rick. Next slide, please. So right now we are in the environmental process and we are continuing stakeholder engagement. Our draft environmental impact report impact statement, which is an EIR-EIS, is expected to come out in spring of 2021, with a final EIR-EIS expected in spring of 2022, followed by the record of decision and notice of determination, which is the closeout of the federal and state environmental processes in summer of 2022. And as you can see in the bottom chart, we are in the first stage right now. We will be releasing the draft EIR-EIS and having a public hearing as mandated by state and federal law. We'll be accepting public and agency comments. We'll then address those comments in the final EIR-EIS, and then approval will be through a board meeting that's open to the public. In the environmental process, we look at over 20 different resources, from socioeconomics to public utilities, to air quality, traffic, and water and biology. So these are all the different topics that we evaluate within the environmental document. And with that, let me hand it back to Hanno to close you out.
Thank you, Stephanie, very much. That was very helpful information. We want to make sure that you all are also aware that the project, as it is a complex project, crosses diverse set of communities, some unincorporated, some cities. So there's lots of folks who are affected, and many of you have participated with us over the years since 2014, actually, when intense community outreach has been conducted to make sure that the public was aware of this proposed program. We are happy that many have followed over the years. The authority has benefited from your comments and questions. And in fact, the alternatives as we see them today have evolved with the benefit and the help of community input, as well as our environmental resource agencies, and ensuring that we stay true to what is required of the authority in building a high-speed rail system here in California. The authority commits to conducting ongoing community activities. So even though we are in this more restricted environment, you will still see communication electronically, and to the degree that we can do any in-person outreach, we hope that will be the case next year when the public document is available for your review. We will be continuing all forms of outreach to make sure that you remain informed and involved with the project. What I'd like to do now is have Rick come back on. And this is the animated video. You'll see the landscape of the geography between Palmdale and Burbank. And he will walk you through the preferred alternative, and he'll indicate to you what you are seeing on the screen. So Rick, go ahead and do your introduction of this, and then we'll start the video once you're done.
Okay, this video starts on the north side of Palmdale. That's Plant 42 on the left side, and the Palmdale Airport on the far left of this picture. We're looking south. Our alignment, you see that we're presenting the SR14A alternative with this flyover. We have developed videos for all 6 of the build alternatives. They'll be available on our website. We're just looking at the SR14A here as the color coding again with our alignments. The green denotes that we are on the surface. The orange is a cut and cover tunnel. Red is where we're in a trench where we'd be open to the air but underground, or below grade at least. The purple is a tunnel where we would be fully underground in a bored tunnel. And then the blue is elevated where we would be on a bridge. So as we go through Palmdale, we are on the west side of the existing railroad corridor.
Prior to you starting, so we're going to play the video for everyone's benefit. It is produced in a high resolution format, but it may come across on your screen somewhat interrupted. Everyone has a different internet connection. We've maximized the settings just for you to know via the Zoom platform, but there is a limit apparently to its system. But please know that this same video will be available on the authority's YouTube channel where you can watch it like any other movie or video that you watch on YouTube, and it should flow quite nicely. But we'll walk you through today, and then please check for it if you're interested in watching it again on the YouTube channel. Here we go.
Okay, thank you, Hannah, for that explanation. So we're moving south now through Palmdale. We're on the west side of the existing railroad. We're approaching the Palmdale station, the Palmdale Transportation Center. The high-speed rail station will be just south of Avenue Q, between Q and Palmdale Boulevard. Alignment continues south. Now you see it swinging to the east to go around Una Lake. We then go over the aqueduct and then go into a tunnel here near the Pear Blossom Highway interchange. We're now purple here. This is all underground as we go through Acton. See, this is farther south than what the previous alignment was. We're on the south side of the 14 freeway at this point. Continuing in tunnel here, we're coming up on Vasquez Rocks, which is just on the right side of the freeway here. And we emerge from the tunnel, short section of at grade, and then two bridges, one going over Agua Dulce Canyon Road. And we go back into a short tunnel, come back out again for a little more at grade, and then a bridge that will span Soledad Canyon Road, the Santa Clara River, and the Metrolink line, and then back into a tunnel at the Vulcan mine site and into a tunnel that will go under National Forest. Now we're coming into Silmar and the Pacoima area. We're still in tunnel here, still underground. We go underneath the interchange of the 210 and 118 freeways. Coming through Pacoima, we emerge from the tunnel at Montague Street. We rise up to ground level, go over the spreading grounds that are below Hanson Dam, over the Hanson Dam spillway, and we enter the Metrolink corridor. We're sharing the Metrolink corridor through Sun Valley, under the I-5, and then back underground to go under the Metrolink and into the Burbank Airport, where our station will be underground, immediately adjacent to the planned new airport terminal at the airport.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rick. We hope that was helpful to get a bird's eye view of what is being proposed. Obviously, the color coding is very important. The line illustrates where horizontally the project is being proposed between Palmdale and Burbank. If we have time, we could watch this video again before we move over into our Spanish presentation. We have found that it's very helpful for people to understand the geography and the proposed plan, the vertical profile of the project through what is a very interesting terrain between Palmdale, terrain and communities between Palmdale and Burbank. All right, so we are, I'm just doing a time check at this moment. We are doing pretty well, just after 6 o'clock, so we have almost an hour to take any comments and questions. I do see that we have had a few folks entering comments in our chat box, and I have at least one person with a hand raised. So I will be able to go back into our PowerPoint presentation for reference, but I will go ahead and take folks' questions or comments in order. So first, and then if I can just ask our technician, you can turn cameras on for the people who are answering the question. That'll be helpful for our audience to see who's answering the question. So we can begin. So first I see from the Shadow Hills Property Owners Association, Cindy Bloom. Cindy, I see that you have your hand raised. You are unmuted. If you can go right ahead with your question or comment. Cindy, can you hear us? Maybe.
Sorry, I'm not used to doing these on my phone, and it's different than on my computer. Can you hear me?
We sure can hear you.
Hi.
Nice to hear you.
Okay, great.
Cindy. Go right ahead.
That was a very nice animation. So, okay, so I see that cut and cover is being utilized at the airport. What is the depth approximately of that tunnel? And what is the depth of the I guess the platform, or is the station still going to be underground there? And if so, what is the depth?
Yes, the station will be underground, and it'll be very similar to a subway station, like you see on the red line, 80 feet or 80 to 100 feet below the surface.
Okay, just a follow-up question. They also, I've noticed they've got a lot of building down by the airport now. They put up buildings, it seemed like, in just a matter of weeks. And are you aware of those buildings, and will they be in the way of the cut and cover?
Yes, we're aware of those buildings. We've been coordinating with the city and with the folks, the developer building that. We will impact some of those, not all of them, but some of those buildings would be impacted during construction. When we're finished, our station will be completely underground, and there could be facilities on the surface there, but we will have to acquire some of those buildings in order to construct the station.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I will go ahead and take one of our next questions that came through our chat box, and this is from Wendy. This is regarding property impacts near Lake Palmdale. So in relation to the adjustment that we've been talking about today, the question is, I own property right by Lake Palmdale. How does it affect me, is the question. So I know we are not at that point with specific impacts are known, but in general, can Rick or one of the team members answer her question?
I can try. Of course, it depends on exactly where the property in question is. The original SR14 alignment came very close to the dam, excuse me, and you can see on the map that's there now that there were property impacts in the Barrel Springs Road area west of the Metrolink. But with the new preferred alternative, the SR14A, because we're swinging east around Una Lake, we are now east of the Metrolink as we go through that area. So there would be property impacts on the east side of Metrolink and the east side of Sierra Highway, but the homes that are south of Lake Palmdale and west of the Metrolink would not be directly impacted by the new SR14A alternative.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Next question is from William Irwin, also in relation to impacts, but specific to tunnel and properties. How deep will the preferred SR14 tunnel be when it crosses under the Santiago Road 14 intersection? And how does it trace Sierra Highway as it heads northeast? They live at 2071 Galloping Way. Thank you. Rick, did you want me to repeat that, or let me know if you want to?
Yeah, how deep underground at Santiago Canyon? Roberto, you can take a shot or look at that and give us an answer a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, let me take a look at where exactly Santiago Canyon with respect to our alignment. I will give an answer.
Excellent. If you need an address, again, 2071 Galloping Way. The interest is between Santiago Road and the 14 intersection.
Yeah, I just look at that. I was following the chat, and in that area, the depth of the tunnel is approximately 200 feet deep.
200 feet.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, William. I hope that answers your question. And again, we'll continue to show at the end of the presentation our email and phone number. If you have any follow-ups, please feel free to give us a shout or write us. Hopefully that was helpful. Next, a question from Laura Betancourt regarding property impacts. This is specific to Vasquez Rocks. Any issues being underground near Vasquez Rocks tectonic plates at Vasquez. So a geological question. Rick, would you want to start and
Is Paul on?
Is Paul Guptill our team member? I do not see.
Yes, I'm online.
Oh, excellent.
Sure.
Paul, we have a question for you. If you heard us, a question regarding Vasquez Rocks. Any issues about being underground near here?
We are going to be quite a ways away from Vasquez Rocks, and there are no, plate boundaries in those areas. So we will have no impact at all on the Vasquez Rocks. We'll be actually on the other side of the SR14 freeway. So
When you say quite a bit of ways from Vasquez Rocks, what estimate would you give?
It's a few miles, I believe, just by generally looking at the location.
Okay.
We are on the south side of the freeway, and the
South side.
park is on the north side.
Excellent. Thanks for those reference points. I think it's very helpful for our public to position this, as they're so familiar with their own landmarks and where we are with our proposed line. Okay, next, another question from our chat box from Greg Basham. This is in relation to tunneling. There is a lot of tunneling, thousands of loads of quality concrete. That seems to be a comment. Anyone from the engineering team maybe just want to make a mention of what goes into tunneling and the loads of quality concrete?
Well, there is a lot of tunneling and definitely be a lot of concrete. I don't know if Juan or Roberto, if you want to try to take a shot at that question.
The question is about the amount of concrete?
The question is not very clear. And Greg, if you want to resubmit a chat and clarify, but we can talk generally. Why don't you guys talk generally about the amount of tunneling?
Or maybe is it describing the methodology of the tunneling?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I will try to do that. So we have foreseen several different methods for building the tunnels along this alignment, because we have several tens of miles of tunneling depending on the alternative, and we cross very different types of materials. No, but in generally speaking, we either have what we call TBM tunnel with a tunnel boring machine, and then what we call mined tunnel that is mined with traditional methods, of mining. In the case of, in both cases, the tunnels would have an inner lining of concrete. In the case of the TBM built tunnel, the inner lining will be precast, and we will be producing in a facility outside of the tunnel, maybe on the tunnel portal, or maybe in a separate facility, and will be transported on the tunnel portal by trucks. And on the case of the mine tunnel, that inner lining will be cast in place. No, usually it's built cast in place, so you get concrete, fresh concrete to the building part of the tunnel that is being built at that moment, and you pump it with concrete pumps to the around the tunnel that you have just bored, in order to get that finishing. And that is the strategy also, in order to do to watertight the tunnel and avoid leakage getting into the tunnel.
Excellent. Thank you, Roberto. I notice a few folks with their hands raised who've been waiting patiently. So I'm going to move to addressing our callers who have their hand raised so they can ask their question. And I'm going to announce your names in order so that you know you're next. And then I'll come back to the chat box and we'll resume. We have quite a few questions on the chat box, so I want to make sure we have time to get to everyone. First, with your hand raised, I'm going to go to Samuel Campos. After Samuel, I'm going to go to Kelly Decker, and then Jackie Ayer, William Ike, and then Russ. So first, Samuel Campos, please go right ahead and ask your question.
Hi, how you guys? Thank you for all these slides and everything.
Sam, if I can ask you, if possible, to speak up or get a little closer to your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. It's just a little dull, so just speak loud and clear.
Right next to my computer. I have no idea what else to do.
That's okay. That sounds good. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay. When will you guys actually know what route this is going to take? There's a lot of us that have property that's basically right on the route, and it keeps changing. And I know that there's a lot of us that are getting affected, they're going to be affected by this, thinking about building something or making some improvements and can't really do anything and haven't been able to do anything for the last, since this started, since 2014, basically.
Our schedule is that we would be issuing our draft environmental document next spring, and that we would have a final record of decision, which is a final decision, a final formal environmental clearance in the summer of 2022. So still a year and a half away. But we have, and that is one of the reasons why we are designating a preferred alternative. While it's still subject to change, we could change at times one of the other alternatives, but we do have the preferred alternative designated that shows where we think the alignment would be at this point in time.
Okay, so by summer of 2022 is when basically it's going to be finalized. That's the route you guys are going to choose.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. That is a very important question for a project as complex. It takes quite some time to do the proper planning, and you're right, it has been done over the years. This is the latest schedule, so please stay tuned, and we appreciate you remaining involved with us here. Next, who will have their hand raised is Kelly Decker. Kelly, welcome and go right ahead.
Did that work?
That did work.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I noticed in the animation that there appears to be at the base of Lopez Canyon near Paxton and the 118 interchange, a section that is cut and cover. Can you tell me if that is going to be essentially an ingress or egress point for a tunnel boring machine? And given the length of tunnel on either side of that, is that essentially going to be the primary point of pulling dirt out for the entire tunneled section and transporting it to its final location? And where is that final location?
Okay, there's a lot of questions there. Thanks, Kelly. The orange denotes what we call an intermediate window, which is a construction access to the tunnels. The alignment is all underground through there. And when we're finished, it's all underground and the surface is restored. But during construction, there will be a construction site there where we would have a hole to access the tunnel alignment so that, yes, we can insert or remove the tunnel boring machines from the intermediate window. Exactly how we remove the tunnel spoils, there's different ways to do that. And it depends a lot on staging, how we would do this. But generally our intent here is that most of the tunnel spoils come out the south end and utilize the pits that are available in the Sun Valley area. When we emerge from the tunnel near Montague Street, we're right next to the Boulevard Pit, old quarry. And that is very deep. It's an enormous pit, and it can take all the tunnel spoils that we have on this project and still not fill that thing up. So that's kind of the intent of what we'd like to do. Filling those old quarries provides a benefit to the community there that land could be reclaimed and redeveloped. And we also then can do a lot with using conveyor belt systems within the tunnels to transport the materials so that we minimize having trucks hauling the dirt all over the place.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. And Kelly, thank you for your question. I'm going to move on. Our next person with their hand raised is Jackie Ayer. After Jackie, again, it'll be William Ike and then Russ, and then we'll proceed back to our chat comments and questions. Jackie, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay, I appreciate your time this evening. I guess I have sort of a similar question, but addressing the construction access point that's midway on the new preferred route. Can you tell me how it's going to be configured, where it's going to be actually, whether or not the tracks will be open to atmosphere, which would potentially create noise impacts, or will be completely sealed? And will you be withdrawing dirt from that point since it's in the middle and not on the ends?
Yeah, so this new alignment through Acton is a different configuration. This is about a 13-mile long tunnel. And at the midpoint of that tunnel, we are proposing another one of the intermediate windows that I was just talking about. This would be just west of Crown Valley Road and just south of the freeway. And we would, again, dig a hole and use that to access the tunnel alignment, which is about 100 feet deep at that location. So again, this is a temporary construction impact in that when we're finished, we would fill that back in. We might still have a building on the surface that would be like a ventilation structure or maintenance access for people to get down into the tunnel. But the trains themselves would be fully underground. So there would not be noise or visual impacts, as the train would be all in tunnel going through that area. I don't know if that answered your question, Jackie, or is that?
I don't know if I'm still on. If it's a ventilation shaft, won't that make noise? I mean, that's a ventilation.
Maybe I can respond
Sure,
to that, Rick. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, as Rick was saying, the main purpose of this shaft is for construction purposes to minimize the time that this tunnel is being, the time needed to build this tunnel, no? That is a 14-mile long tunnel. Yeah, the ventilation shaft is a secondary, let's say so, use. It's an option that could be implemented. That depends on further studies down the road. But in any case, if finally it's used for ventilation, it would be only used during emergencies. You know that this train is going to be fully electric, so there are no fumes to be evacuated, or I mean, so the ventilation wouldn't be used during operation, only sometimes every week, just to test that everything is working. It would be powered up to do that. But the ventilation purpose is for ventilation during an emergency. You know, these tunnels are going to be bored in twin tunnels, so two tunnels are together in parallel. Therefore, when there is an incident or an accident on one of the tubes, the strategy is to stop the traffic along the line and use the adjacent tube as an emergency or secure space. No? And one of the strategies to secure that space is to pump clean air from the outside to that to the tube that is adjacent to the incident tube. So this would be the purpose. Again, I mean, at this level of detail, this is one of the options for the ventilation system, to use this as a shaft. There could be other options in down the road, but we are considering it as an option.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie and Roberto, for that. I'm going to go to our next callers, William Ike, Bill, and then Russ. And then we have a healthy set of additional comments and questions. So I want to try to do our best to get right through all of them. We are about 35 minutes left for our time together. So let's see if we can make sure we get to the remainder of our commenters. So Bill, go right ahead. Bill Ike.
There we go. Sorry.
Not at all.
Okay. Originally, you drilled approximately 6 core holes in the Angeles Forest. Have you drilled any more, and are there reports on those on the results of those drillings?
Excellent. Thank you. Paul, would you like to take that question?
Yes, sorry, I didn't turn on my video last time. Yes, there were 6 exploratory holes that were drilled in the Angeles National Forest. This is for the purpose of looking at the rock and the various conditions that we might experience for tunneling. And when the final alignment is selected, there would be additional borings that would be done. Your last question was whether or not the results of those studies have been published, and yes, they've been published in a final report, and I believe they should be available on the high-speed rail website.
Okay, when I last looked at the, well, not last look, when I first looked at after the report of the six tunnel mooring holes, the report, we only got it by virtue of a request for public information. They were not anywhere to be found on the website. So if those could be put on the website, that would be great. And number two, maybe I didn't frame my question properly. Have there been subsequent drillings been made, or are you going to make the decision and then drill the holes after the fact?
There have been no additional holes at this point in time because the next set of exploration holes would have to be alignment specific. So when the alignment is finally confirmed after the environmental process, then there would be a very extensive additional field investigation program with probably hundreds of holes at that point in time. So it would be coming in the future.
Thank you, Paul, and Bill, thank you very much. If there's any follow-up, please remain in touch with us. I want to make sure we move on to our remaining speakers. Russ, you're next. We see that you have your hand raised. Please go right ahead. And we cannot hear you, Russ. Try unmuting. If not, we can come back to you.
Okay, I have it unmuted.
There you go. Go right ahead.
Okay.
What is your full name, Russ?
Russell Monroe.
Excellent. Welcome. Go right ahead.
Yes, I've been working several years now with Mike Brian out of Palmdale because I have great interest in the sizing of the airport, or not, excuse me, of the station there. But my concern right now, or my question is on E1A and E2A, accessibility through the National Forest. Are those lines above ground in those proposed areas?
No, those alignments are all, where we're within the National Forest, we are underground. I believe entirely within the National Forest, we're underground on those alignments.
So any problems, there will be accessibility from through the National Forest with permits, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll have tunnel portals that will be just outside the forest boundary. And then the tunnels within the forest, and then another tunnel portal on the other side outside the forest boundary. And we can do our maintenance and access from the portals outside the forest.
Thank you very much. That was my main question.
Excellent.
Sure.
Thank you, Russ, very much. I'm going to move on to some additional questions. There is a lot of questions about tunneling. Several of you have asked questions on tunneling on the comment box, and that's what we've been addressing to a degree. I'm going to move over to a couple of other topics and we'll come back. There's more than 20 folks who have submitted questions online. I'm going to try to get to as many of the topics as we can. What I'm going to choose next, Bruce Hector has a question regarding the alignments. What circumstances might arise that would cause the decision makers to not adopt the recommended route, the modified SR14A? Rick?
Well, it's hard to predict the future. This is a lot of things can change, but we've been studying this for a while. We have a lot of confidence in this line now that we have the right line here. But we thought we were there before as well. So it's hard to say what might happen, but right now we're focused on this line that we're showing here and hoping to get approval on that.
Thank you, Rick. And just to follow up, we have another question for Mr. Frampton, Robert Frampton, regarding the alignments. Why don't you just drop the original options, SR14, E1, and E2, and just study the new 3A options?
We like to have a variety of alternatives in the environmental document. We don't really want to just go in with a limited number. And the original alignments have already been designed and studied. So rather than eliminating information, we want to provide as much information as we can. So we're going to present all 6, and then we'll select the preferred at the end of the process.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to a few questions regarding impacts. Mr. William Irwin asked us a question regarding how often would the trains run, and would there be any audio or vibration sensed at the surface from tunnels? So kind of related to tunnel again, but noise and vibration at the surface.
Roberto, you want to talk about the noise and vibration?
Yeah, there's a first. So the first question about the how often will trains run. That depends finally on the demand, but the minimum headway would be about 5 minutes in terms of the capacity of the line. So that would be the maximum frequency of the train.
Yeah, just sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify that the Prop 1A that was passed in 2008 specifies that we have to be able to run the trains at 5-minute headways. But that doesn't mean that we will. That'll be determined by the market forces on what the demand is on the line and things like that. So just to clarify.
Yeah. So that would be, let's say, a maximum scenario of traffic. Regarding the noise and vibration. So when the train is at grade, of course, it generates sound mainly from the aerodynamics of going at high speed, and also from the pantograph and the wheel set running on the rails. No, this has been analyzed, and wherever the levels of noise are higher than needed and what it is required by the standards, there will be mitigation measures in place, usually sound walls. In terms of vibration, there could be vibration both when we are underground or when we are at grade 2. This is to be analyzed in later stages during the design of the line. There are also mitigation measures to avoid any possible vibration, but usually and especially when we are on the ground, the vibration levels that are generated by passing trains are very, very low. It's very rare the case that we would need to put in place mitigation measures. Only if a tunnel is very close to a building or actually in contact, the concrete of the tunnel with the structure or the foundation of the building, there could be cases if there is a very sensitive, if it is a very sensitive receptor like a hospital or something like that, there could be a possibility of having to put in place mitigation measures, but that's quite strange. The most common situation is sound when we are at grade, and the usual mitigation measure is sound walls, and that usually works out very well.
And just maybe real quick, I've noticed a lot of comments about how deep the tunnels are. Maybe we can try and touch on those. I think maybe Roberto, you have the exact figure of what the maximum depth is. It's over 2,000 feet.
That's correct.
And so, of course, at the portals, we're very close to the ground level. Where we go through the mountains, the mountains have pretty high peaks to them. And so where the mountain is at a peak, we are very deep, over 2,000 feet deep at those points. One of the reasons we're looking at the SR14A as our preferred is that we're deep in the mountain for a much shorter distance than with the E1 and E2, where we are at that 2,000 foot depth for a much longer distance. So that's the maximum depth, but in most areas we are much closer to the surface than that, but we're always at least 80 feet to 100 feet down, which is the same as a subway line, like the Red Line in Los Angeles.
Excellent. Thanks for taking those questions, Rick. We do have a lot of interest in the tunnels and the depths, so we'll come back to more of those questions. We are about less than 30 minutes. I think we're doing actually pretty well on time. I'd like to ask a couple more questions that a few of our attendees have asked regarding impacts, one regarding wildfires, another one regarding schools. And then there's a couple of questions on stations, and then we'll come back to some more tunnel questions. So the question on impacts that relates to wildfires. Wildfires, and this is from Michael Gimbel, have been and will continue to be an issue in the mountains. What measures or design features will the authority put in place to ensure minimal disruptions to train service where the right-of-way is at grade or elevated?
Well, we're working with our safety and security group to look at those kinds of issues. I think as we get closer to construction and operations, we'll do a lot more detailed work. We're really focused on just finding an alignment right now. Certainly wildfires are a huge issue in Southern California. And we will be looking at ways to, hopefully keep the train running if there is an event, a major fire, or find ways to safely shut the train down if there's a fire very close to the alignment. That is something we will focus on a little bit more when we get into final design.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. The next question is in relation to schools. And this is from Jacqueline RC. My question is in regards to the Sun Valley area. There is one elementary school near the E1A and SR14A lines. How will this impact the 100-plus-year-old school? This is one of the 4 elementary schools in this city and is closest to the Metrolink Antelope Valley lines. They are already being impacted by the city's methane gas leak by the DWP. Is this a question for Rick or Stephanie?
Yeah, I believe we are in tunnel as we go past that school, if it's the school I'm thinking of. So there will, again, not be a direct impact to it. I don't believe we have a school impact on the surface in Sun Valley. Stephanie, maybe you can confirm.
No, but there's no schools impacted in Sun Valley. We're underground in the area of any schools by Roscoe Elementary. The only school that's impacted is Rex Paris High School in the city of Palmdale.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that's very good information. Okay, I'm going to go back and ask a few more questions in relation to tunnels. This is from Jim Keenan. How will emergency egress be handled in the tunnel section through the National Forest? This is a commonly asked question. If there's an emergency, how do folks get out?
I can take that question, Rick.
Yeah, sure, Roberto, I was going to call on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, the strategy when having long tunnels is to build them in what we call twin tunnels. So we actually build two tunnels, one parallel to the other one, and we connect them with cross passages every certain amount of length, usually about 800 feet. So these cross passages do have fire doors on both ends, and as I said before, there is a ventilation system in place that would work in case of an emergency. So if a train stops on one of the tunnels for whatever mechanical reason, usually the procedure is to shut down the traffic of the line, and passengers will step on the emergency egress passageway that is built within the tunnel that has handrails and illumination, and will walk to the next available cross passage that will lead them to the adjacent tunnel. In the adjacent tunnel, the traffic will be stopped, and usually what is done is that another train is dispatched to the tunnel, an empty train to pick up the passengers that were stranded in the tunnel. And the ventilation system, as I said, is put in place if there is smoke or whatever contaminants coming into the incident tunnel, and therefore the secure tunnel is pressurized, so there is a higher pressure of air in that tunnel, so there is no smoke. There is no way the smoke can get into there. Also, the emergency cross passages are pressurized, so therefore when the door is open to get people inside, that high pressure air keeps smoke from coming into it, and also they work as secure sites also. There are the fire doors that are closing these cross passages are usually rated for a 2-hour fire, a very high temperature fire. So there is usually enough time for evacuation and for rescue if it's needed. So well, that's pretty much the safety measures that are conceived for these tunnels. These usually follows the NFPA standards and the fire marshal regulations, local regulations.
Yeah, so I was going to point out there are regulations that we are required to follow in terms of how quickly we are able to evacuate a train and get people to safety. And we're working with the state fire marshal, which will also be involved in improving our safety protocols and evacuation procedures.
Excellent. Thank you both for that. That is definitely a popular question of interest for our public, so that's a very important topic. We do have about 20 minutes remaining. I want to make sure that we get to as many of the questions that we have on screen. I'm not sure if we'll be able to. In the event we are not able to reach all the questions, we do have a record of them. And Rick and LaDonna, we might want to do is just follow up on those questions and actually put the Q&As that we're offering tonight in perhaps a follow-up document or some form of communication to the public, so that obviously there's an interest in the project, and that way we can extend the reach of the questions and the comments back to folks. I think that's something we can do if we're not able to get to everyone's comment tonight. So the couple more questions about tunneling, and I'm going to kind of collapse them. Questions about how long are the tunnels? What have you learned about the length and the cost of tunneling? And in relation to length, can you describe what the time duration is in perhaps the longest tunnel? People know it in terms of miles, but maybe not in terms of time. So can we address that as quickly as possible so we can move on?
Yeah, I believe the two tunnels we have, the northern one is about 14 miles, and the one through the National Forest is about 13 miles. We'll also have a 13-mile tunnel up in the Pacheco Pass. And I think I saw somebody asking if that would be the longest tunnel in the US, and the answer is yes, it would be the longest railroad tunnel in the US, whichever one of those is the longest.
How many minutes would you be in that tunnel, or is it seconds for that longest tunnel? Can anyone answer that question?
We would be, at 180 miles an hour, we'd be going 3 miles a minute. So at a 14-mile tunnel, you would be in there about 4 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes.
That was very quick calculation, Rick. So yes, that's helpful for folks to know. Is it seconds, or are you, in that underground configuration for a bit? 4 minutes flies right by. Okay, I'm going to bounce around in terms of construction. Is there an indication of how many miles that the now that we've talked about miles for tunnels, what about surface, cut and cover, trench, and elevated? Can you give us an estimation of the number of miles for those?
Maybe Roberto has all those figures, but if you look at the text on the left side of the drawing that's on the screen now, the length, the SR14A is about 41 miles in total length, with about 25 miles of tunneling. So that leaves about 16 miles that would be above ground.
Yeah, most of that is what we call at grade, that is either on an embankment or in a trench, no? And there are, of course, there are quite a few structures, but I mean, most of the alignment that is outside of the tunnel would be what we call at grade, no? Most of those mines.
Okay, great. I have another question in relation to the alignment. SR14A seems like the longest alternative. Does the alternative have the longest construction time as well?
Construction time will be driven mostly by the tunnel construction, which is why we want to have the intermediate windows. That really helps to speed up the time required to build the tunnels. Yes, it is the longest of the alternatives, but all take similar duration to construct, and that information will be in the environmental document.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, the explanation for that is because although it's the longest, we can segment the construction of the alignment in more chunks, let's say so, no more contractors, more construction sites, no. We can divide the tunnels also in more segments, and therefore, as Rick is saying, the main driving factor here are the tunnels. If you have very long tunnels that you cannot divide into several segments, like we have in E1 and E2, then that's your longest period, and therefore what is driving you the total schedule. No, so although it's longer, and that's true, we can achieve a similar time for construction, similar to the other two alternatives. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Roberto. While we've been talking, we do have another person with their hand raised, so I want to make sure we're covering everyone here. Candace, I see that you have your hand raised. I'm acknowledging you now. Can you go ahead and speak or ask your question?
Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. I have a couple properties right by the 14 and Crown Valley Road, specifically 33302 and 33300 Crown Valley Road, off the 14 and Crown Valley. I'm just wondering, where is this concrete construction site going to be at? Is it off of Cedral, I'm hearing?
It's north of Cedral. It's between Cedral and the freeway, west of Crown Valley Road. There's a kind of a dead end road there, Antelope. I forget the name of that road that goes west of Crown Valley.
Yeah.
Basically at the end of that.
It's Antelope Woods Road.
Antelope Woods Road.
Okay. And is that going to be closer to Crown Valley or closer to going inward?
Do you know how far west of Crown Valley we are, Roberto?
I'm just wondering if it was going to be, you know, where you go under the freeway there, like towards the curbside, or is it going to be more inward? I guess I mean, away from Crown Valley Road?
It's about 2,000 feet to the west of Crown Valley Road.
West. Okay. And then just a real quick question on that. How many hours a day are they going to be working on this per day, and what days a week? Do you know?
So usually tunneling is developed in 3 shifts, so 24 hour a day and 7 days a week.
But to clarify that, we have to comply with local noise ordinances.
Yeah.
The tunnel construction can be 24/7 where it's underground, where the boring machine is moving deep underground in the tunnel. That doesn't affect anybody, but the surface activities have to be in compliance with local noise ordinances.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just one more quick question. I'm sorry. I mean, obviously when we did that aerial view, it was going a little fast, so I'll have to watch it again. But just wondering if this is going to be, I guess, affecting my property to where is this going? I think I saw it going more to the property next to me, the vacant field. I wasn't sure. I was just wondering if you can see if it's going to be right under my property. I'm just wondering.
Candace, can I ask you to give us a call or an email? We definitely get back and have these conversations with people and kind of walk you through the map to help you understand a little bit better. Obviously, I agree with you. The flyover was meant just to show conceptually where the line is. That might be the best way to help you. And a lot of times people get their answers realizing it's not as close as you think it might be. Either way, that would probably be the best way to answer your question.
Okay, and
if people
on that.
Sorry. If people send us their address or parcel number, we can typically put together a little exhibit showing exactly where the alignment is in relation to that property.
Thank you very much, Candace. I want to thank you very much. I want to get to a couple of questions regarding stations. Do you have any renderings of what the new station and property will look like? And then the other question is, will the Palmdale station be modified, or will there be a separate station next to the existing station? Let's see if we can get that information out to people right now.
Real quick, at Palmdale, we will be building a new station south of Avenue Q, and that station will be a combined station where Metrolink and high-speed rail and the trains to Las Vegas will all be stopping there. It'll be a multimodal station, all those all working together, so people can have easy transfers from one line to the other. So we'll basically be replacing the existing Metrolink station with a new station to the south.
Thank you for that.
The stations haven't really been designed yet. I think there was another part of the question about what they'll look like, and we're working with the cities on the architecture and the how the aesthetics would work on the stations, but that's all for a later stage of design.
Excellent. A couple more questions, and then again, for those of you whose questions I haven't been able to announce specifically, we'll do a follow-up and make sure that that's available. Regarding earthquakes is another commonly asked question. So there are numerous, usually small earthquakes in the mountains daily. Are you keeping track of them, or how will you handle if an earthquake strikes?
Yeah, Paul's in charge of earthquakes. So
Paul's in charge of earthquakes. Paul.
I'll let Paul answer that.
Let me get my mic on here.
There you go. We can hear you.
Yes, all of California has a very extensive monitoring system for identifying earthquakes. And this is publicly accessible if you want. You can go to the USGS or the California Geological Survey, and they provide access to recent earthquakes and historical earthquakes. From very small to some of the larger ones that are more easy to feel. So from that standpoint, yes, we are monitoring. We are in a very active area in terms of earthquake potential, and there are active faults that are adjacent or crossing our alignment. So those are being considered in different ways depending on the location. So those are being considered in the overall design and development of the entire system. There would be automatic shutdowns for trains along the tracks or in tunnels, depending on the ground shaking intensity. And you can actually get an app on your phone now to see what the ground shaking intensity is and where it is. So a lot of these things are so common now, and they're just part of every project in California.
Excellent.
Yeah, I wanted to point a little bit on the last topic, no, what happens when during the train operation if an earthquake.
And we do have one more person with their hand raised, so go right ahead, Roberto. I just want to make sure we wrap
very
it.
fast, yes.
Quickly, please.
Yeah, so I mean, in Japan, they have been dealing with high-speed rail and earthquakes for quite a long time. I mean, before even having apps on your phones. So the idea is to have an early warning system to stop the train in the event of having an earthquake that could affect actually the running train. So it will be a very similar system to what is being deployed in Japan for several decades already.
Excellent. Thanks to address those questions. So it looks like we have 2 hands raised. So I want to wrap up our conversation with some of our callers. First, Liliana Sanchez from the Sunland Tujunga Neighborhood Council. If you can hear us, please unmute and go right ahead.
Okay. Hi, so yes, I'm Liliana Sanchez, Sunland Tujunga Neighborhood Council President. So in 2014, we opposed this, this plan, for the high-speed rail. And I wanted to ask what is happening with the funding, because I understand that the governor had put a halt to this because of funding. And now where did we find this money that we miraculously now have? There are people suffering right now from not even having a meal to eat because of the pandemic or jobs, and we're putting money into this. We're still talking about moving forward on this project. Can you please give me some more insight on that, on funding?
So the governor actually didn't cancel the project. He said we would focus on the Merced to Bakersfield as a first operating section, and that we would continue to get environmental clearance on the rest of the phase 1 alignments. And that is what we've been doing. The funding that we have for the work that we're doing, the construction that's underway in the Central Valley, and the environmental work is all funding that was established several years ago through the what's called ARA, the American Recovery, and I don't remember the exact acronym for that, but that was the stimulus bill in 2009. We also get funds out of the cap and trade program in California. So that's the money that we have to build what we're building right now. I would say that you talked about jobs. We have over 1,000 construction workers employed every day in the Central Valley, helping us to build this. We have opened a workforce training center in the city of Selma, just south of Fresno, where young people can come in and get training for the trades, being a carpenter or electrician or all the different trades that we need to build this program. So this actually is very much a jobs program that is actually helping to lower the unemployment rates in the Central Valley with the construction that we have going right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Liliana, very much for your question. Those are really important topics. I think we have time for one more caller, and then we will be switching over again, everyone, right at 7 o'clock to our Spanish presentation. You are welcome to stay online and listen to the whole program in Spanish if you wish. Please know that we are keeping track of all the comments and questions, both asked and those that haven't been able to ask, and we will do a follow-up document to make sure that these topics are addressed. A lot of really important questions. We really appreciate your continued interest and curiosity about the program. It's important for us to continue that dialogue. Okay, so the next person who I see on screen with their hand raised is Fran Ceres. If you can please unmute yourself and go right ahead.
Great, thank you for having me. My name is Fran Ceres. I'm a commissioner here in Lancaster, and I'm also a commissioner for the County of Los Angeles. My first question was on earthquake, and I know it was kind of, my sentence was kind of chopped off, but you answered that question. But now I have another one. As far as the tunnels, are they going to be wide enough for safety vehicles to get, in case of an emergency, to get people out, you know, like ambulances and fire trucks or the like?
Yeah, another part of the design is that at the portals, we will typically have what we call an emergency evacuation zone. And this will be an area that's designed for emergency vehicles to come, you know, helicopter access, things like that. So that if there's an incident inside the tunnel, we evacuate people out, as Roberto described, to the portals. And then at the portals, those people can be treated, or you know, emergency vehicles can access the people at that location.
Oh, okay. So that'll be done on the surface, not in the tunnels themselves then.
Right. The idea is to get people evacuated out to the portals and then get them to safety at that point.
Okay. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Be careful.
Excellent. Thank you as well, Fran, very much. It's, if I can make mention, it's 6:56 right now. Our video, the aerial video that we showed earlier, it runs just under 3 minutes. Rick, what do you think? It might be of interest to folks for us to play the video as our closing. Again, it's available on the website, or will be shortly. But I think this might help folks just orient themselves once more. A lot of the questions is specific to that. How does that sound?
Maybe we can do a couple more questions while we're running the video. I know.
If anyone has their hands raised, please do. And then, yes, that's a great idea. I will see if I can bring forward a few more questions. Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead. I think there are more questions on the chat that I saw that we haven't answered yet.
Let's see if we can get it. That's a good idea. See if I can find any that are more geographic. Are you doing hydrologic modeling for impact analysis for the cut and cover, trench, and tunneling? So a water question. Is this going to Paul?
Yeah, he's in charge of water as well.
Go right ahead, Paul.
There's no water modeling right now, but water modeling would be something that would be more attuned to the more detailed studies. But as far as the groundwater issues that we're addressing at this stage, we're addressing the impacts of tunnel construction within the Angeles National Forest. We're also looking at other potential impacts in other areas along the alignment. But as far as the groundwater outside of the National Forest, most of the time the tunnels will be outside of or above the groundwater table. The groundwater systems are actually quite deep along most of the alignment, but in some local areas there may be some impacts that will have to be addressed, and so those are being considered at this point, but the direct modeling is not really started yet until we get a specific alignment that we can really evaluate. And part of that evaluation would be doing investigations of what the groundwater systems were along the entire alignment. So we're kind of waiting on that final decision on which alignment to take.
Thank you, Paul. We are wrapping up the video here, going into the more southern section. Let me see if I can ask one more question. There was a question in relation to the U.S. Forest Service permit. What's the status of the conversations with the United States Forest Service and applying or securing a special use permit? Any quick comment on that? Would that be you as well, Paul?
Maybe we'll let Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie, go right ahead.
Maybe Stephanie can answer that one.
And if you can keep it very brief.
Yes, we are, as we did the A alternatives for the Una Lake minimization, we have been doing our analysis for the last year. We are at the stage where we're going to be reaching out to begin discussions with the Forest Service about these new alternatives. They haven't seen them yet. So as we do that, we'll continually work with the Forest Service through the completion of the environmental process and work with them in getting a special use permit if needed, if we do choose to go under the forest for any reason.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie, and to all of our panel members for asking, or rather answering the variety of questions. You can tell folks are interested and have really good inquiries into understanding this project. To our audience, I thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. Again, for anyone who was not able to join that you know of, this recording will be posted to the website. We will follow up with any remaining comments that we were not able to get to. And so with that together, we should be able to provide the information that is being asked of us at this point. And we will continue this dialogue and make sure that you're aware of the document being released per its schedule of spring 2021 next year. So for now, thank you so much for joining us. We will be remaining on this same Zoom link, but taking a short break to transfer our files and commence with our Spanish presentation. So Juan and Roberto, please keep your cameras on. To the rest of our panel, please don't go away, but you can turn your cameras off. And to all of you joining us, once again, have a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay safe out there. We'll speak again. Thank you.